It is amazing how much there is to be discovered in a simple cup of espresso. Loved by coffee drinkers the world over, espresso still has many secrets to reveal and many stories to tell. A wealth of knowledge for both connoisseurs and coffee lovers. In order to really understand espresso, we need to leave behind the things we all think we know and discover some of the genuine tricks of the trade. To prepare an espresso, whether it's normal, ristretto or lungo, it always takes the same amount of time, the obligatory 30 seconds. The difference lies in the grind. The finer the grind, the more the coffee powder resists the hot water to produce a smaller amount of coffee, a ristretto. A coarser grind allows the water to flow more freely, filling more of the cup and creating a lungo. When the magic formula for preparing espresso is not respected, the poor results are easy to see. There are two main types of imperfect espresso: under-extracted and over-extracted. Luckily, they are very easy to recognize. Under-extracted espresso happens when the extraction time, the quantity of coffee powder or the water temperature are lower than they should be. The extraction of the substances from the coffee is incomplete and the resulting espresso will be weak and too acidic. The crema will be light-colored and not very long-lasting. Over-extracted espresso happens when the extraction time, the quantity of coffee powder or the water temperature are greater than they should be. In this case, too many substances are extracted from the coffee and it will taste bitter and astringent. The crema will be dark, often with a white spot in the center. Espresso naturally offers perfect balance, without the addition of sugar or milk. However, many coffee lovers are reluctant to change their habits and prefer to add a little sugar or milk to their espresso. There's nothing wrong with this, but those who wish to deepen their knowledge of coffee and become true connoisseurs should gradually accustom their palates to the taste of espresso without distractions. What about water? A small glass of water before tasting the espresso will clean the tongue and help you to perceive the acidic, bitter and sweet flavors more distinctly. Coffee and water have one thing in common. They are two most consumed beverages in the world. Annual global consumption of water is 240,000 million liters. Annual global consumption of coffee is 160,000 million liters. Naturally, espresso would not be what it is if it didn't reflect the particular chemical composition of the coffee from which it is prepared, and especially if it didn't contain caffeine. Considering all the methods for making coffee, espresso is the one that extracts the least amount of caffeine, while coffee made in the mocha or filter coffee has a greater amount. The longer the extraction is, and the longer contact between coffee and water, the greater the amount of caffeine in the cup.
According to the legend, it was an Ethiopian shepherd who first discovered the properties of coffee many centuries ago. Since then, in order to become espresso and constantly improve, the history of the coffee bean has been full of invention and success. In the hands of the best baristas, it has now conquered the world. But we need a good storyteller to tell such an important tale.
Myths and legends are always fascinating. They are part of the poetry of peoples around the world. But I prefer to base myself on documentary sources. The oldest known work is by the monk Fausto Nyronas, who wrote De Saluberrima Pozione in 1671, making it the first treatise dedicated to coffee. This is where we find the story of a goat herd called Shadley, who some say was from Ethiopia or maybe from Yemen, and who was struck by the agitation of his herd of goats. However, I've gone back and studied the story in the original Latin, and that version talks about camels. Finding the animals grazing on a bush filled with shiny red cherries, the shepherd realized the stimulating effect must be caused by the fruit. He even set off on a journey to bring the mysterious fruit to a monk. The man of the cloth took one look at the cherries and declared them the work of the devil, throwing them into the fire, where they released their unique and tempting aroma. Probably when those very beans were ground and soaked in a bowl of hot water, the first cup of coffee in the world was created. It is said that this dark, bitter drink enabled the monks to fight off sleep on their long nights of prayer, and that the beans came to be seen as a true gift from God.
The start of the 20th century saw experiments in Europe to find the best techniques to prepare a new kind of coffee, more aromatic, full-bodied and quick to make, in keeping with an era that was so in love with speed and modernity. To obtain a drink that was satisfyingly intense, it was necessary to work with pressure. The first espresso machine was presented at the 1884 World's Fair in Turin, designed by Angelo Moriondo. This was followed by legendary models such as the Bezzera, the Pavoni and the Victoria Arduino. The result was coffee that was bitter, not very intense, with a slightly burnt taste, very different from what we drink today. The turning point came in 1935, when Francesco Illy had the inspiration to use an external pump to produce the pressure for his espresso machine. This was the origin of the illetta, one of the forerunners of contemporary espresso machines. The water used for the preparation never exceeded 100 degrees Celsius, and the result was quite similar to today's espresso. As well as the illetta, Illy Café has created or introduced many important innovations in the 80 years since the company was founded. Pressurization to improve the packaging of ground coffee and beans, which actually improve in the can. Single portion pods and the invention of espresso capsules to enable impeccable preparation in any context. Espresso may be the most complex drink that we consume. Thanks to its concentration, this preparation brings out all the characteristics of coffee, qualities as well as defects. A real challenge and a genuine testing ground for the barista, who carries out so many small daily tasks that are essential to a good espresso. Some of these are invisible to us and we don't even notice. Opening the 3-kilogram can of Illy coffee 8 hours before it is going to be used to let the beans breathe, all the time polishing the espresso machine and puffing out the steam spout, or carefully calibrating the grind to adapt it to the humidity and temperature of the coffee shop. Right up to the moment of service, when the perfect cup of Illy espresso is placed on the saucer on the bar, giving the cup handle half a turn so that the logo can be clearly seen by the customer. If the coffee shop is the temple of espresso, then the barista should be considered the master of ceremonies. It is only thanks to the barista's talent and skills that tasting an espresso can be transformed into a truly memorable moment. The symbol of the Italian-style coffee shop, espresso today is consumed and loved by millions of enthusiasts. It is at the heart of rituals that accompany age-old traditions. Every day, 7 million cups of Illy espresso are enjoyed around the globe. In little more than a century, espresso has conquered the world.